Every once in a while, you come across an artist with the ability to transform themselves into their art. They have this unique capability to take you to a different time in a different place with the execution of their craft. Karen Lawson is one such artist. We're all familiar with the story of Harriet Tubman even before it was brought to the big screen. Lawson is here today to give her rendition of Tubman's story that I'm sure you will enjoy. Let's give her a round of applause.
Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Come on now, we got to go to freedom. Come on now. We ain't got time to do anything. You got to come on now. Come on here. We got to go. You giving me a hard time? What are you saying? What you say? You're giving me a hard time? You better move or die. Because dead men don't tell no tales. You're not going to get us caught. We getting out of here. I'll shoot you dead before I let you turn us in. My name is Harriet Tubman. I was born around 1820 in Dorchester County, Maryland. My parents were Harriet and Benjamin Ross, one of 11 children. My real name is Araminta Ross, and my nickname was Minty. You know, slavery was like living in hell. I was rented out at the age of 5 years old to work as a domesticated servant in the houses. And one of my jobs was to sit down on the floor after my long work of working for the lady in the house. I had to sit down on the floor and hold her baby and rock her baby all night long. All night long. And if I fell asleep, she would quickly take her whip and whip me. This went on all night long. That wasn't a job for a 5-year-old. And then they rented me out to another family. And I'll never forget it. I was whipped more than 5 times that morning. Whipped constantly on my neck. Constantly. My job was to sweep. My job was to sweep a house. And so I swept and I swept. My job also was to take the rag and wipe and dust the furniture. And so I did that. And then I swept some more. But then when my missus came in, she said, I thought I told you to clean this room. And I said, ma'am, I did. I cleaned the room like you told me, ma'am. And she whipped me. And this went on for five different times. And finally her sister came in because she was staying there at the house, and she woke up. And she said, what are you doing to this child? What you doing to this child? She ain't doing what I told her to do. I told her to clean up this house. And I come in here and it's still dusty. And her sister, so kind. I never met a kind white lady like her. And she said, Minty, she said, baby, show me what you did, how you cleaned it. Show me how you cleaned the house. Show me how you did it. And I showed her. I dust, and then I swept, and I dust some more, and I swept. And she said, now what I want you to do, baby, I want you to go out of the room, do your other chores, and come back. And so I did as she told me. And when I came back, the place was covered with dust. She said, now, Minty, listen, baby. This is what you do. You sweep first. Let the dust settle. Go out and do your other chores. And you come back and you dust. And I never got whipped again. And working in the house was not a place for me. I remember one time, I was about 7 years old. You see, slave children didn't have a childhood. We were property. We worked. And we did what we was told. There was no time for running around and having fun. Sometimes the slave children were allowed to play with the master's children. But then when they got to be a certain age, they cut it off. They didn't want that lasting friendship. Well, at the age of 7, I worked for a lady, and she was a mean lady. And she was always arguing with her husband. And one day, because my job was to stand there while they ate their dinner, and they would call on me to do different things for them. And I stood there, and she was arguing something awful with her husband. And I stood there, and I said, there was a little bowl of sugar cubes. And I hadn't had nothing, never had nothing sweet in my life. I never had nothing good in my life, and I wanted it so bad. And so I reached for one, and as soon as I grabbed one, she jumped up, and she had the whip, and she went, and I bolted out the door before you know it. I ran and ran and ran until I couldn't run anymore. I didn't dare stop by any other houses because they would have turned me in. And I ran until I came to a farm. And there were some pigs and a mother sow there. And I fought all day and night with those little piglets for their scraps, those potato peelings. I fought them. I was so scared of that mother pig. And I couldn't take it anymore. This happened on a Friday. I didn't return until Tuesday. I was so hungry and weak. And I knew what was coming to me when I went back. And they said I wasn't fit for nothing. I wasn't fit. Well, as I got older, they put me out to work in the fields, which I liked better because I didn't like being underneath the close-knit reign of those mothers, those women, those ladies in the house. I wanted to be out there with my peoples in the fields. Well, one day, I was about 15 years old, and there was a slave that escaped. And he was running toward the general store, and I went after. I wanted to know what was going to happen. And we went into that slave ran into that general store. And that overseer ran after him. And I was there standing right there. He said, "Stop that Negro." And I stepped aside and let him go free. He picked up a 2-pound weight, and he threw it, and it hit me, and it cut off part of my head wrap, and I was bleeding and concussion, and for months I was in a coma, in and out of comas. And my slave master, Mr. Brodus, came. He said, "She ain't fit for nothing. She ain't worth nothing. Nobody wanted to buy me." And from that day forward, I would have sleeping spells and narcolepsy. I could be in the middle of doing something, and I would fall asleep. Wherever I was, I could be in the middle of a conversation, and I would fall asleep. Oh, the headaches. And during this time, my mother, she took care of me. And I remember my mother had a strong faith in the Lord. She believed in the Lord God Almighty, and I watched her as one day Mr. Brodus brought a buyer for my little brother. And my mother, she said, "You will not take my son," because 3 of my sisters had already been sold off into the deep south, never to be seen again. And she took my little brother and she hid him for over a week. And Mr. Brodus couldn't find him. And he never did sell my little brother. But then when my sisters were sold, more family members sold off, I remember praying. I said, "Lord, if you're not going to change that man's heart, if you're not going to make him do right, Lord, kill him dead." And a week later, Master Brodus fell dead. In my heart, I said, "Lord, if I could trade all the silver and gold in the world for that soul, Lord, have mercy. Forgive me, Father. I give my life for him." It was too late. The evils of slavery will drive you to do things. I remember the story of Moses. And Moses saw one of the Egyptians treating his fellow Hebrew servant, his brother, bad, and he killed him. Evil, desperation will drive you. Well, as time went on, as I became older, my father was a skilled woodsman. He worked on the shipyards, and I had an opportunity to work alongside of my father. And I would hear the soldiers and those that came through, and they would talk about freedom. They would talk about this Underground Railroad. And then in 1855, I married my husband, John Tubman. That's where I get my name from, John Tubman. And so I decided that I was going to escape. And you know, my husband was a free man. And he told me, "If you try to escape, I'm going to tell on you." And from that day forward, I didn't say anything else to him. But this man was such a kind man that I was rented out to the man that had hired my father. Well, I would work alongside with him, and he gave me an opportunity to keep part of the money. And so I saved my money, and I bought me 2 oxen, and I would rent myself out. And I saved my money, and I planned my escape. I planned my escape. I was going to be free or die trying. I wasn't going to let them get me. And so, 1849, let me backtrack. I married my husband in 1844, not 1855. Let me backtrack, y'all. Let me get this thing right. So in 1849, I planned my escape. So I remember my father would teach me about the different herbs and things to eat in the forest. And I learned that The North Star was on the side of the trees, would shine on the side of the trees where the moss grew. And then I learned in the Underground Railroad, the houses that you could trust had a lantern on the free side, the north side of the house. And so I planned my escape. Now, remember this. There was no work on Sundays. Sundays was the only day that we had to rest or whatever, go to church or do whatever. But we were still watched by the slave master and the overseer. And so I planned my escape on Saturday night because I knew that the newspapers and the vigilantes and those that would go back and catch slaves, they would not know until that Monday. And they would be sent off. So I had a day ahead of time to plot my escape. I had a day's journey ahead of me. And so I followed the North Star, the Big Dipper. The slaves call it the drinking gourd. Oh. And I walked and I walked and I traveled. And I came to a house. There was a kindly white woman there. And I knocked on the door and she said, come on in. I said, well, ma'am, we're only allowed to go through the back way. She said, you come on in here. You're just like I am. You're a human being. And she said, come on and sit down. And so I said, you want me to sit down on your furniture? She said, baby, sit down. Can I get you something to drink? Some lemonade, something cold? I was just so amazed that this white woman was so nice to me. She gave me bedding and provisions for my journey. She allowed me to rest and refresh myself. And she sent me on my way. And I kept traveling. Now, in the Underground Railroad, the safe houses, as they were called, they would have trap doors in the floors, in the walls, the ceilings, the attics, the barns. They would have these hidden rooms where they would hide the slaves. And one day, I kept north. And when I would hear the sounds of the dogs, I would wade in the water to lose the sound, to lose the scent, to lose the scent of the dogs. I would wade in the water, wade in the water, children. I would wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. I would sing that to the slaves and let them know, because those songs were slave codes. And they would warn the slaves. And that was our way of communication. Even in the fields, we would sing these old spirituals to warn each other. Well, I kept walking. And I kept walking north, and I kept walking. And then, the sign says, the line to cross over into Philadelphia. Oh, Jesus. I looked around and the sun was shining through the trees and it looked like gold. And I looked at my hands. I said, I'm free. I'm free. I crossed over into Philadelphia. I said, I'm free. Hallelujah, I'm free. I never felt so alive, so free. No one to bother me, no chains to hold me. I was free. For my Bible says, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. And I know my Lord and Savior set me free because I trusted in him and I leaned not into my own understanding. But in all my ways I acknowledged him and he directed my path. He told me where to go. He would talk to me in dreams and visions, and he would tell me what to do. And I stayed there and I worked. They were so kind to me, the people. And I was allowed to work anywhere I wanted, and I saved my money, but within my spirit, that freedom ain't free if your family is in bondage. And so I planned to go back. I planned to go back, and I went back. I went back 19 times, and I set people free and never got caught. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger, because my God is able. Oh, glory to God. I want to share this last thing with you. 1863, the Combahee River Raid in South Carolina. I was called on by the government to come and be a spy for the Union Army, to be a nurse. And so, Colonel James Montgomery said, I'm not going if she ain't going. I want General Tubman to be with me. And so we planned it. We had three ships and 150 black soldiers that were ready, able, and willing to fight for their freedom. And so in the wee hours of the morning, in the middle of the night, we planned our escape. And we maneuvered ourselves, because I was a spy also. And because I was a spy, I had the trust of the slaves, and they would tell me where all the torpedoes were planted along the Combahee River. And so we went through that river quietly, and on the signal, over 700 slaves came on all of those ships, and we struck a blow to the Confederate Army. We struck a blow. We tore up all of their storehouses, their ammunition. We burned everything. We flooded the rice fields. It was a glorious victory. Glorious victory. I was also a part of the women's suffrage. I was a motivational speaker. I also bought property in Auburn, New York, where I retired and brought my mother and father. Because you see, back then, if you went north and you got caught, you could be brought back into slavery. So we moved further up north. And so, as the story goes, I died March the 10th, 1913. And on my deathbed, all the people that had been blessed by the Lord's using me, they stood around me and they sang as I passed on into glory. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Oh, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Oh, I looked over Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. Oh, a band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Oh, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Oh, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Oh, coming forth to carry me home. Oh, coming forth to carry me. Carry me. Carry me. Hallelujah. Home.
Wow, what a performance. Let's give her a round of applause.